Well, hey, there you are, Sonia here. Welcome to Out Here on the Farm. It was not an uncommon thing to have knocks on the door of all hours of day and night. And so the lady inside was prepared to take care of whatever the need was of someone knocking on the door. Now, she had cabins that she had designated just for people that were special and that needed extra help, needed a place that they could call home. And this young man had a backpack on his back, and it was dark night out there. She turned the porch light on, and he says, "I'm sorry, ma'am." He said, "I heard that you have a place for people like me to rest and relax and possibly get a good night's sleep." He said, "Would it be possible for you to have a place for me?" And she says, "Well, yes." She says, "Where have you been staying?" And he said, "Well, I've been staying in the woods for some time now." His family had talked about him and talked down to him and told him how unimportant he was and how ugly he was. And she said, "Ugly? Young man, have you looked at yourself?" He says, "Well, no, ma'am, I have not." And she says, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, there was never any mirrors in our home, and they were convincing me that no one would want me around them, and I was very undesirable in my appearance." She said, "Did you know that looks isn't everything, and that we're known by the beauty that we manifest within ourselves to others? As a matter of fact," she said, "if you know the scriptures at all, God doesn't even look at the outward appearance of man. He sees the heart. So that you have been deceived about, because you're a nice looking young man." He said, "Really? Are you serious?" She says, "Yes, I'm very serious. We don't lie here. We tell the truth as much as possible." And he said, "Well, I would surely appreciate having a place where I could lay down and rest." She says, "Is this all you have with you?" And he said, "Yes, I just have this backpack, and it's my worldly possessions that I own. A few books and some odds and ends of things and some clothing." She said, "Well, let me get one of my workers with me, and I'll take you out to one of our cabins." "Oh, that would be so fine, ma'am. Thank you so much." She says, "Now, I do have some questions. And some rules here. We don't allow drinking here. We don't permit drugs. We certainly don't accept anyone being unkind and cruel to one another. This place here is a place of refuge for those that need to be comforted, needs to restore themselves, needs to regain themselves, and find a place to rest. It is a place of refuge," she says. "And in a place of refuge, there should never be hostility, judging, or criticizing. We should always be kind to one another." "Yes, ma'am, I heard that about you, and that you have strict rules, and I am more than willing to abide by them. And no, I don't do those things. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I just need a place to stay." So she called one of her workers out and said, "I want you to come and follow me. We're going to show this young man his new home." And he turned around and smiled. He said, "My new home?" She says, "Oh, yes." He says, "You don't need my name, my background check, my credentials." She says, "Oh, no. We believe in people here. We have confidence that they know that sooner or later, if they have been telling us a lie, we will find out. And we trust people here. Everyone should do that. That should be going on all over the world. But we have found that there's very few that accepts one another just as they are." So the other young man that was working with her stepped out, and they walked over towards the cabin. And they walked up to the door and opened it up and turned the light on. And he peeked in there. He says, "Oh, that's just absolutely wonderful," he said. He said, "Is this going to be where I'm staying?" She said, "Yes, it certainly is. Welcome to your new home." And tears just filled his eyes. And he says, "Thank you, ma'am." "Oh, you're quite welcome. Now, you haven't eaten today, I suppose." "No, I don't know when I last had some food." "Well, now you get settled in here. I'm going to have my worker here bring you some clean clothes and some towels and whatever, and you can get cleaned up, and I'm going to fix you one nice, tasty dinner." Oh, he was overwhelmed with happiness and joy. He said, "You know, this place is just like a haven to me. I almost gave up, but then I heard about you. I heard about you out here on the farm in a house and cabins on a hill, and that it was a place of refuge, and that you had strict rules, and if we abide by them, we're welcome to stay here as long as we like." She said, "It's very true. Now I'll be back." So she went back to her home and started preparing this young man one of the tastiest meals. She fried up some chicken, had some mashed potatoes and gravy, and some homemade biscuits, and even some apple pie. And by the time all that was done, the young man had already gotten his shower and gotten cleaned up and was sitting in his chair with his head bowed, just so grateful that someone really cared. You know, sometimes in life, that's all anyone needs is just somebody to care. Maybe you don't have a cabin, maybe you don't have a refuge place, but sometimes just kindness and caring and helping the best way you can is all they need. And acceptance. So she came to the door with her worker again. They always went in pairs. And she heard him talking, and she stopped, and she said, "Wait." And he was praying on his knees. And she heard him pray. She said, "We're not going to interrupt him now. Let him pray." And she says, "Isn't that a beautiful sight to behold?" She looked at her co-worker, and she said, "You know, I think we've won another soul." He said, "I believe you truly have, ma'am. You truly have." And after he got through praying, they still waited for a while. And then they knocked on the door. And he says, "Come in." And she says, "We have your dinner for you." And he was all cleaned up, a fine-looking young man. And she laid his meal down on the table. And she says, "Now I want you to enjoy this." And she says, "By the way, do you mind if I take a picture of you?" "A picture?" "Yes. I want to show you what you look like." Not that it matters to me. I don't care what a person looks like. It doesn't matter to God. But I just want you to know something. You've been lied to. For some reason, there's a lot of mean people out here in this world. But you've been lied to and deceived. So she took a picture of him sitting there at the table. Oh, what a nice portrait that was. He was smiling from ear to ear, and took the cloth linen napkin off of the food and says, "Oh my goodness, if that's not wonderful," he said. "That looks so delicious." So she said, "Before you start eating, and we're leaving now, we're going to let you have your time here in your new home. I want you to look at this picture of yourself." He reached out with his trembling hand, and he took a hold of the phone, and he looked at himself. He said, "Is that really me?" She said, "Oh yes, it's really you. Really you." And he said, "Well, so yes, I have been lied to, haven't I? I'm not all that undesirable and ugly." And he started chuckling. He said, "Well, I don't want to sound vain, but," he said, "I'm even quite handsome." She said, "Yes, you surely are, young man. Welcome home." And they went outside, and he started eating after he said his blessing again. And you know, that young man was dedicated for years there with her, and helped her and worked and became one of her co-workers. Now, I hope you've enjoyed my little story, and I look forward to the next time. And so, until next time.